flooding in the southeast, wildfire smoke in the Midwest, and a tropical storm brewing. Mother Nature's got a lot on her plate this week. Plus, billion-dollar valuations in tech and Michael Jackson's stinky old socks sold for thousands of dollars. Plus, today's trivia question. What iconic 2002 moment helped launch modern stand-up paddleboarding into mainstream attention? I'll tell you at the end of the show. And in just a couple of minutes, we have a big announcement from us here at the Flyover. It's Monday, August 4th. This is the Flyover Podcast. Welcome to the Flyover Podcast, taking you above the noise for an unbiased, high-altitude view of today's headlines with daily coverage that's honest and refreshing. Let's cruise the news and land the facts. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Flyover Podcast. I'm your weekday host, Ayla Brown. I hope you had a great weekend. I had a performance on Saturday night with my husband and a very relaxing Sunday. But it's Monday, so let's take off with the biggest headlines of the day. First up, weather and air quality alerts were lighting up maps across the eastern U.S. on Sunday. Heavy rain just parked itself over parts of Alabama, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle, dropping 3 to 5 inches in some spots and ramping up the risk of flooding throughout the southeast and the plains. Meanwhile, if you're in the Midwest, you might have noticed the haze. That's smoke drifting down from more than 700 Canadian wildfires, and it triggered air quality advisories for millions. Most of those alerts were aimed at people with heart or lung issues or asthma. And meteorologists are now watching a tropical depression forming in the Atlantic that could become Tropical Storm Dexter as it moves toward the southeast. Now to New York and New Jersey, a 3.0 magnitude earthquake rattled parts of both states on Saturday night. And it wasn't quiet. People described hearing a loud boom followed by a few seconds of swaying. It struck in Bergen County and was felt all the way into Upper Manhattan and Staten Island. No damage or injuries have been reported, but local officials are warning residents to stay alert. Aftershocks can still hit, and they can sometimes pack more punch than the original quake. And for context, this comes after 6 minor tremors hit the same area last week, not to mention the 4.8 magnitude quake in April that was New Jersey's second largest ever. And finally, a new ranking of the world's most valuable private companies just dropped, and the U.S. absolutely dominates. According to the data from CB Insights, 31 of the top 50 firms are American, led by SpaceX at $350 billion, OpenAI at $300 billion. China comes in second with 8 companies, including TikTok's parent company, ByteDance. So what's driving all of this valuation? AI and fintech. Fast-growing names like Anthropic, xAI, and Safe Superintelligence are attracting billions of dollars without even going public yet. It's a pretty clear sign of where the innovation and investment winds are blowing. See the full list in today's show notes. Here are your top political headlines today. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett says job data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is now very unreliable following President Trump's decision to fire BLS Chief Erica McIntarfer on Friday. The move has sparked debate over the independence of economic data as the White House claims recent jobs numbers don't reflect reality. Jeanine Pirro has been confirmed by the Senate as the new U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. The Fox News host will now serve as the top federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C., following a contentious but ultimately successful vote. New documents from America First Legal claim the Biden administration worked directly with then Attorney General Merrick Garland on limiting parental protests at school board meetings. The group says the internal memo shows a coordinated effort that amounts to political suppression. And a GoFundMe campaign for Virginia City Councilman Lee Vogler has now passed $55,000. Vogler was seriously burned in a targeted attack last week, and the money raised will help cover his ongoing medical costs. We have big news here at the Flyover. We're not just reporting the news, we are rebuilding trust in it. And now you can actually own a piece of the Flyover. Here are just a few reasons to invest. First, we've built one of the fastest growing independent news audiences in the country, over 2.6 million strong and climbing. People want fact-first, agenda-free reporting, and we are delivering. Second, if you're listening right now, chances are you already believe in our mission. You know our tone, our values, and why the coasts shouldn't speak for the country. Third, this isn't just a bet. The Flyover's already generating over $500,000 a month in revenue. We're not hoping it'll work, it already is. Fourth, we're just getting started. With new shows, partnerships, and verticals launching soon, now's the time to get in early. And finally, you are not just a reader or a listener. You are part of the Flyover family. Join the mission where truth takes flight and readers take ownership. Invest in the Flyover today by visiting invest.jointheflyover.com. Once again, that's invest.jointheflyover.com. In making an investment decision, investors must rely on their own examination of the issuer and the terms of the offering, including the merits and risks involved. The Flyover has filed a Form C with the Securities and Exchange Commission in connection with its offering, a copy of which may be obtained here. Invest.jointheflyover.com. All right, moving on. Here are some bonus stories just for listeners of the Flyover podcast that you're not going to find in the email edition. First, Columbia Sportswear is taking Columbia University to court, claiming the school's merch, especially plain blue apparel labeled just Columbia, is breaking their 2023 trademark agreement and confusing customers. The lawsuit argues the university ignored rules requiring academic logos and wants all the merch pulled, plus damages. Next, in Singapore, 12-year-old UZD is making waves, literally. She just became the youngest ever medalist at the World Aquatics Championships, helping China take bronze in the women's 4x200 freestyle relay. While fans are calling her the next big thing, experts in China are warning not to put too much pressure on her this early. And this story got me. I don't know, I can smell him from here. A rhinestone-covered sock, not multiple, but one, worn by Michael Jackson during a 1997 concert in France, just sold for nearly $9,000. It had been kept in a frame for almost 30 years, and auctioneers say it's another sign that Michael Jackson memorabilia, like his $350,000 glove, still commands serious cash. That is your podcast extra roundup. I'm looking forward to giving you more exclusive content in tomorrow's show. Coming up, 4 NFL greats were just inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'll tell you more about that and more next. In finance, Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs saw nearly $1 billion in outflows on Friday, the worst single day of 2025 so far, as institutional investors pulled back the moment President Trump's new tariffs took effect. The drop signals growing uncertainty around crypto's short-term outlook amid shifting economic policies. Next, Delta Airlines is under scrutiny after U.S. senators raised concerns that it might use AI to set personalized ticket prices based on income or location. The airline pushed back hard, saying it has never used, tested, or even considered that kind of pricing model. And in a new twist on the remote work economy, some tech-savvy employees are reportedly earning up to $1 million a year by holding multiple full-time jobs at once. They're using AI to juggle meetings, emails, and tasks, pulling it all off with a standard 40-hour work week. You want to learn more about that? Read about it in our show notes below. Here's what's happening beyond our borders. A Ukrainian drone strike hit an oil depot in the Russian resort city of Sochi early Sunday, sparking a massive fire and temporarily shutting down the local airport. No injuries were reported, but the flames lit up the skyline for hours. Meanwhile, a Canadian official said President Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney will meet over the next number of days to discuss lowering the 35% U.S. tariff on Canadian goods. That tariff just took effect Friday and has already sparked backlash north of the border. And in some unexpected economic news, Ukrainians fleeing the war have launched over 100,000 businesses in Poland since the start of the conflict, highlighting how displaced communities are contributing to their host country's economy in big ways. Here's some sports news. English golfer Mimi Rhodes pulled off one of the wildest aces you'll ever see at the Women's Open Championship. Her tee shot hit another player's ball on the green and ricocheted straight into the cup for a hole-in-one. Fans and commentators were stunned, and the clip has since, of course, gone viral. Meanwhile, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones told fans not to lose sleep over Micah Parsons' trade request. Despite the public tension, Jones suggested the team is confident it can reach a long-term extension with the all-pro pass rusher. Speaking of football, 4 NFL greats, Sterling Sharp, Eric Allen, Antonio Gates, and Jared Allen, were officially inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The ceremony over the weekend celebrated their legacies and contributions to the game. Still to come, could MS be silently affecting people years before they know it? A new study says yes, and the early signs might surprise you. In science and tech, researchers at Penn State may have finally solved a mystery dating back to Ben Franklin's famous kite experiment, how lightning actually forms inside thunderclouds. Their findings, based on high-resolution imaging, show that branching electrical discharges, called leaders, are the key triggers that build up the charge imbalance needed to spark a bolt. Did you get all that? Plus, over the weekend, a viral rumor about a so-called eclipse of the century had people buzzing. But it turns out the real event won't happen until August 2nd of 2027. And when it does, by the way, it'll mostly be visible in Europe, parts of Africa, and the Middle East, not here in the United States. And a new study suggests that multiple sclerosis might start affecting the body up to 15 years before it's typically diagnosed. Researchers found that symptoms like chronic fatigue, pain, and even depression can show up long before obvious neurological issues appear, potentially opening the door to earlier detection and treatment. Let's wrap things up with some stories that you might have missed, but definitely want to hear about. Over in Russia, the Krusheninnikov volcano erupted for the first time in centuries on Sunday, just days after that massive 8.8 earthquake that hit the Kamchatka Peninsula. The eruption sent ash nearly 4 miles into the sky and triggered a short-lived tsunami warning following a 7.0 aftershock. Meanwhile, in Brazil, scientists have discovered that jaguars are oddly fond of rubber car mats. They're using them to collect hair samples as the big cats roll around on them like giant house pets. And in St. Petersburg, more than 10,000 people, they hit the city's rivers and canals this weekend for the annual Fontanka Sup Festival, paddling through the waterways in full costume on stand-up paddle boards. You can see the photo linked in today's show notes. Now we hand the microphone over to you. Here's yesterday's poll question and the results. Which classic TV jingle do you remember the most? 34% said, My Baloney Has a First Name. 31% said, Plop, plop, flit. Oh my gosh, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. That is a tongue twister. 15% said, I'd like to buy the world a Coke. 13% said, 2 all-beef patties. And 7% said, other. Personally, I have no idea what the baloney jingle is, but you guys do, and that is all that matters. Here's the poll question for today. Have you ever experienced an earthquake? Here are the ways you can vote. Just a little shake? Yes, a strong one. Yes, but I didn't feel it. Or no, never. For me, I actually have to vote yes, but I didn't feel it. I was in New York City one time for a show years ago, and my band and I rented out a rehearsal room. If you've ever been to a rehearsal space, most of the room is padded, so you don't get a lot of sound bouncing around or bleeding into other rooms. We came out of the rehearsal, and everyone we saw that day said, "Did you feel the earthquake?" I can imagine that because we had drums, guitars, amps, we just didn't feel it, but everyone around us did. I will read the answers in tomorrow's show. Thank you for voting. You can do so in the show notes below. Are you ready for the trivia? Here's the question. What iconic 2002 moment helped launch modern stand-up paddleboarding into mainstream attention? Well, I don't know if you know this guy, but I remember he's a big wave surfer named Laird Hamilton. He stood tall on a paddleboard off the coast of Malibu, riding waves while carrying a massive American flag. The striking image went viral in surf circles and beyond, helping ignite global interest in stand-up paddleboarding as a sport and a lifestyle. There you go. Thank you so much for watching, listening, sharing the Flyover podcast. And don't forget, starting today, you can invest in the Flyover newsletter and the Flyover podcast. All you have to do is go to invest.jointheflyover.com. Once again, that's invest.jointheflyover.com. I will see you tomorrow. Until then, thanks for flying with us.